I'm sorry I didn't get back to you. I meant to, and then I got tied into 3 other things. In an effort to just keep kind of making myself, our staff, our team available, we just call this press availability. We don't have huge announcements. I know folks were, and we were too, hoping to learn whether or not we got the extension on FEMA. We have been in continued dialogue with FEMA, but we unfortunately don't have an answer as of yet on that extension. We do have some exciting news, however, on the SLDC front, and that's why Otis Williams is here with us today. The SLDC board yesterday approved the services of Griffin and Strong attorneys and public policy consultants that will be helping us with an extensive MWBE knowledge path forward. Separately, we also have Shelton Anderson here with LRA, who is just announced yesterday that the LRA will be resuming accepting of offers for LRA properties. We have a long backlog, and we have a lot of folks who are interested in purchasing our LRA properties, and this is a good move for us to continue those sales. And so with that, I'll also just make a couple of other quick notes. We have an ongoing commitment to take down properties in the zone affected by the tornado. We have started demolition on publicly owned properties. This is through a collaboration with the St. Louis Regional Crime Commission, funded through the DED. And we have a few of those properties are now starting to finally come down. There were a lot of hurdles, I would say, with the state funding and getting those things right, but those are starting now to finally come down, which is a good thing for the adjoining properties. We targeted, as you may remember, properties that were really putting at risk immediately adjacent occupied homes. Okay.
Mayor, are you starting to look at any kind of long-range plans of how some of these neighborhoods are going to look? You go down some blocks and every house on the block has been damaged by the tornado. Are we looking at North St. Louis being like parts of being just this huge barren wasteland? Or have you guys started to craft what a long-term plan might look like?
The long-term plan, Otis, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of Otis, I just finished meeting with Elliot, is really something that we are going to be working with SLDC on. The long-term plan is one that really needs to be driven by community. It also is going to require just an enormous amount of funding. We are anticipating applying for requesting community development block grant funds, the specific disaster designation, to help us to fund that, to drive that rebuilding effort. We anticipate hundreds of millions of dollars, upwards of $1 billion, will be required to actually do that, so that we don't have a wasteland, that we do have a community that is rebuilt in a way that both honors the historical context, the folks that live there and have lived there, and provide a path for an even brighter future. And so those discretionary funds, those community development block grant funds, are funds that we're going to be leaning into to ensure that we have the serious financial investment necessary to do that work.
Is that going to really be possible with this administration, with the Trump administration that seems to be cutting a lot of programs to cities?
I do have hope for that. These will be congressional allocations. And, the community development block grant funding is something that is continued. And we do have hope that we will be on the receiving end of those funds. It's what cities like Joplin have relied on to be able to rebuild their communities. Those funds are specific to rebuilding after disasters, and we clearly have a very, very high need here, and we will be going after those funds with all the strength that we can put together.
When it came to the FEMA extension request,
Mm-hmm.
back in the early days when we were first asking FEMA to grant the initial approvals,
Mm-hmm.
we had clear guidance from you on what that process looked like as the city interacted with the federal
Mm-hmm.
government. what is the process like now? Time's running out to actually get this extension granted. Can you give us any more update on what that exchange is on your end, and what are the avenues for people to rush and get this done in the next couple of days?
Yeah, I hope that the path here has been just as clear, Mark, and that we have been working with FEMA on a daily, hourly basis in, pretty constant communication with our partners there. As I've said a few times, while the underlying structure of FEMA has been really challenging to work with and presented a lot of unknowns for us, the folks, the actual FEMA representatives here on the ground with us have truly been phenomenal partners, very, very communicative with us on an ongoing basis. Julian Nick stepped out, but he would be available to take a question or two if you wanted to, because he is, as the chief of the recovery office, our representative, communicating very, very regularly with FEMA. Their guidance to us was to wait until closer to the deadline so that we could make a very, very strong case on the extension, leaning into those relationships. We did make that application, that request last Wednesday, and we are still waiting to hear back. I know Julian spoke with them again this morning, and we're continuing that ongoing dialogue. I do anticipate having a response from FEMA in the coming days. We were hopeful to get that today, so I'm looking forward to that, hopefully by the end of the week. But unfortunately, even the folks who are here on the ground with us are not the decision makers that will be determining whether or not we get the extension. Your other question, what we're doing to make sure that we're getting people applied, we're again really, really encouraging folks to engage with the DACs, those disaster assistance centers. And we also have folks knocking doors. We have a ton of volunteers. A huge shout out to the Board of Aldermen, the president of the board, Megan Green, and her office, and also the entire board are really out there doing a lot of the legwork. We have a lot of volunteers in the community who are knocking doors. FEMA has engaged with a data sharing agreement with the city, so we were able to overlay our GIS the data that really identifies those properties that have been damaged. You can really see that from the extensive drone photography that we were able to deploy right away. Layering that on top of the FEMA data related to the applications gave us a figure of about 700 households that we believe were impacted that had not applied. And so we are targeting those to try to make sure we're using every mechanism, every method possible of getting in touch with every person. We know some people have been displaced, and that has become a really big challenge. If your home was damaged and you're now in a different location, we are recognizing many of those are displaced with FEMA funds, which is a good thing, but some folks are still displaced, and we're working on making sure that we're doing the direct communication to the best of our ability, Mark. But it is a challenge and it is a concern, and that's why we're really pushing for this extension.
But to follow up on that, are you having is the city trying to prove, what is the city trying to prove to FEMA to justify the extension?
I don't know if you've gotten a copy of the letter. We outlined some of this, the rationale in the letter itself, but we do point to the fact that the deadline was soon at the time of the letter. We are continuing to see people come in and engage in the disaster assistance centers, those DACs, over 100 a day, which in our view really points to the ongoing need of that direct assistance and the extension. We know people, if people weren't engaging anymore, that would be a different story, but we're continuing to see people engage, apply, ask questions, supplement their applications with additional paperwork that may be required. And so we do feel confident that we need the extension, and we're very hopeful that we're going to get an extension on it. The other thing, really, you see the gap between those who have applied and those who have been awarded. I don't want to make any misstatements here. If you've applied, you're good, and if you still need to make addendums even beyond the deadline, you can still do that. This is really just a matter of getting that first application in, getting yourself enrolled with FEMA, addressing any gaps in what information you may need to get those awards. You don't need to have everything on the front end. Just get yourself applied as soon as possible so that we can make sure that we're getting you the assistance that you deserve.
Mayor, what's the update on the investigation into SEMA and Sarah Russell? I know you mentioned it was nearing the end.
It is nearing the end. I hope to have an update before this. I'm meeting with our city attorney later today, and I should have some more information on that. I don't have the answer right now, but I do anticipate having that concluded very, very, very soon.
If the jail, if any corrections officers have engaged in excessive uses of force in the jail, and that has resulted in their dismissal or their suspension, should the city release the video immediately?
We are looking into that question, Mark. I know that is something you have been looking into, particularly related to issues that have occurred this year in the jail, and we're taking those very seriously. I don't have maybe a specific answer to that question today, but we are continuing to work on it, and maybe I would say in the coming days, weeks, as we kind of figure out what can and should be released when, we'll have a more clear answer, and it's more of a protocol moving forward. We're in a bit of an unusual time for our jail in that the leadership changing as we're seeing Doug Burris's contract come to an end. We are interviewing for that top spot. You may have seen Tammy Ross was reinstated as the deputy there. So, you know, we are continuing to engage with the jail in a constructive manner.
A follow-up on that, Tammy Ross was demoted under the last administration.
She was.
And she was cited and even signed off on documents where she acknowledged that she may have violated state law, including minors close to adult detainees, and allowing a deceased inmate to stay there after EMS had left. Do you have trust and confidence in her? Would you consider her for the top job there?
I don't know if Tammy's on the list, to be honest with you. That's being handled by our Director of Public Safety. I haven't seen those specific allegations, Mark. I'll look into them as a result of this question here. I have seen Tammy in action. Her staff have a lot of confidence in her, and I'm really leaning into both Doug Burris and Director Dace to really lead the search and to drive the search on who should be at the top of the jail. But what you just raised is something I'll get to the bottom of.
Mayor, on Tuesday night, we had 4 teens that were involved in a carjacking of a rideshare driver turned into a police pursuit. Police holding a presser right after this that one of those same teens did the same thing again last night. What's your reaction to hearing teens carjacking rideshare drivers 2 nights in a row after just being released from juvenile detention? That's
terrifying. You know, we have an ongoing issue with juvenile crime in the city. You know, one of the issues related to that is the point system that the state has, allowing us to really hold teenagers accountable. You know, I think it's not only worrisome for the drivers, but these teenagers are putting themselves in incredible danger by participating in these acts of violence. And so, you know, we again are kind of, you know, really, you may have seen the police department is really focusing on cracking down on some of that. You know, we're trying not to be, you know, having a model that incarcerates children, but rather provides a better path forward. So as we kind of walk through this, this is something that Save Lives Now, the broader coalition of violence prevention is digging into, our Office of Violence Prevention, and really digging into how to better adopt some of the national models here. I'm incredibly I would say enthusiastic and hopeful about some of that work. Just last week, the Save Lives Now coalition had some really extensive trainings that involve the entire region and our partners in violence prevention that I think that I know that I have confidence in the long term will be very effective at addressing some of these issues, identifying kids that are clearly at risk for continued behavior and intervening in a more constructive and productive manner.
On the
Yeah.
minority and women business, owned businesses and contractors, you mentioned you're bringing a consultant in while you're pausing the issuance of new contracts. Could this theoretically delay the arrival of construction at the airport, for example?
Otis, do you want to talk about
Yes,
that?
please. Actually, we have been working with the airport and with the contracting community, and the construction at the airport will continue. It is one of those exceptions that we have. We spoke to you all about an exception being emergency contracts. In the case of the airport, it was already underway. And in fact, they had already identified their construction team. So as a result of having the construction team and the agreement that they would retain all of the construction team, the decision was made to go forward with the airport construction. So that one is on schedule. In fact, they are meeting today to have a decision about the team.
And does that decision include participation goals?
The decision is essentially, this is an RFQ, so this is the first stage. The decision about the contracting terms and those things are further down the road. And so those we'll take advantage of what we find through our consultants' activity over the next 30 days.
Mayor, some black contractors told us in the last couple of days that you've made private assurances and promises to them that they'll be cut in to whatever development comes in the tornado zone specifically later on. Can you elaborate on the role black contractors and laborers should play in rebuilding the north side of St. Louis?
I can't speak, I don't know that I've had private conversations, but I've had quite a few conversations over the last few months. And I do have a commitment to ensuring that we're doing everything we can to include and involve and empower our black contractor community. We had a real disparity in the wealth generated in the construction industry here in our city. Nationally, this is an issue, but it's particularly one here. There have been ongoing disparity studies that are very clear in that. I don't think is disputable. And I believe it's the role of our city and our government to do everything we can to rectify that. And I intend to lead in that way. How we do that, I do think I'm leaning into this consultant that SLDC has brought on board to ensure that we're not putting any of our federal funds at risk or any of the other federal programs that we rely on, that we're going to need, the community development block grant funds, the FEMA funds, a whole host of things that we need to rebuild. But I continue to believe in that the program and what it's designed and what it's supposed to do, and what I believe we as a city need to do.
What are your thoughts on Comptroller Darlene Green, or former Comptroller Darlene Green, just appearing back on payroll?
I believe the word I used was bonkers. I did not know that was going to have such longevity, but I stand by it. It's bonkers. We have some ongoing issues in our personnel department. I am very, very grateful to our new Civil Service Commissioner, Emily Martin, who came on board to serve in that third seat in the Civil Service Commission. They are moving forward with a search to find the right person to head up our personnel department. We have some very unusual personnel circumstance. I mean, it's not just an HR department. We have civil service roles. We have a whole host of things that are fairly archaic, but make it a very, very complicated department to run. But I'm hopeful that with that search, I believe a firm was identified to move forward with that we'll find the right leadership to take the department forward.
Comptroller Barringer suggested that maybe the Department of Personnel needs to, the charter needs to be amended so the Department of Personnel falls under the city's purview. Is that something you agree with?
Comptroller Barringer mentioned that, as you pointed out. I think it's worth looking into. I think there's a whole host of questions that we have to answer. One of the things that isn't very well known, we have 8 county offices in our city. They're citywide elected, and each one of them have their own personnel departments, their own HR departments essentially, and they don't follow the civil service rules and a whole host of other things that make hiring for the sheriff's or the registrar's office, the collector of revenue, all these other county office departments a lot easier, a lot more streamlined, and the pay schedule, the compensation more in line with the private sector. And so, that causes a disparity within our city hall structure. And so I think we need to be looking at all ways of remedying that. We continue to have shortcomings in every one of our city departments, which makes it very, very difficult to pick up the trash, trim trees, remove debris, do all the things that the city needs to do on an ongoing basis. And so addressing the issues in the personnel department are certainly a priority for me. My new Director of Operations, Ben Johnson, and my entire team.
Mayor,
Just to make
from
sure
what
I understand
Just-
correctly, are you suggesting
Wow.
that you want each department to kind of have their own personnel department?
I did not say that. In fact, I'm pointing out that within the city hall structure, that is the case with the county office holders. It does make hiring within those departments easier. You can see that by their staffing roles. My point is that there's a system of systems within City Hall that are very unusual, certainly not ideal, and very worthy of a deeper dive, as the new comptroller rightfully pointed out.
Mayor, from where you sit, you don't believe that Darlene Green is in any way to blame in this whole check fiasco?
I have spoken to Darlene several times over the past year. Lots of times I haven't spoken to her about this, but and so I don't want to speak to that. But my heart tells me that I don't think this was necessarily directed by former Comptroller Green. The last I spoke to her, she was looking forward to getting her pension payments and just moving into a happy retirement. So I have no indication that she was at the helm here.
Chief Tracy yesterday mentioned to the police board about the idea of addressing firefighter parity. Do you agree that the charter should get reviewed in that regard?
I have not talked to the chief about that. He kind of caught me by surprise. I don't know that he was necessarily directing that, but it is an issue. Looking at the pay across the firefighter and the police department, it's an issue that I think we need to be careful, be very mindful of, just from a budgetary perspective, as the police board moves forward. And so keeping those in mind, I think the budget for the police department is going to be one that's going to be of very significant importance to our overall budget as a city. One of the issues we've talked a lot about over the last year is the compensation for the chief, and how that plays in to state control and the parity with the fire department's chief.
In your last job, you were the chair of the Budget and Public Employees Committee, and today that same panel could advance a measure to put the sheriff under something of a probationary period as it pertains to spending decisions in his office, and maybe also further define whether or not he has to transport inmates to and from medical appointments from the jail. What kind of oversight would you have been engaged in if you were still chairing that panel, and what exactly do you want to see the city instruct the sheriff on these issues?
This is an interesting one because, again, the sheriff's office is a county office. I think when you have these county offices that operate largely independently, it can become a problem. But I think that accountability is incredibly important. We provide budgets to each department, not just the county offices, but each department within city government to do specific things. For example, we're looking into the IT budget line item in the sheriff's department just to make sure that those funds are actually allocated to computers. We want to make sure that our sheriffs have access to Regis and have access to the tools they need to do their jobs, and having up-to-date equipment is a key component to that. And if funds that were previously allocated, for example, went to things that were not specifically outlined in the budget process, that's a problem. That's not an accusation, but rather something that we are taking seriously and looking into, because we are where the buck stops as far as the city goes, and we need a sheriff's department. We need a responsible party to not only transport prisoners to the jail, but be present when prisoners need to be moved around within the jail facility to seek much-needed medical assistance, or when they're restrained. You know, we're taking it very seriously what happened a couple of weeks ago with the fatality there, and looking at processes and procedures to ensure that we have the staffing to make sure folks are safe.
And to his claim that he's tried to reach out and communicate with you, but has been met with a stone wall, how do you respond to that? Do you want to engage with him directly on budget issues?
Absolutely. We met with his office earlier this week. They came in, we had all the county offices here in the mayor's office.
Where do you think the IT budget is going?
I'm not sure. I don't have an answer to that right now. Also, I just point out that it's an incredibly important component here. I know we've got to have up-to-date computers to be able to handle the technology that they need to do their jobs.
Okay, there's no indication they're going.
There is no indication right now. I just pointed out as an example. Yeah.
Mayor, I talked to one of the black aldermen who wrote you that letter about the minority business contracts. They said that you guys have a meeting on Friday. You're meeting with the aldermen. What do you hope will comes out of that meeting?
Well, you know, I'll give Otis the floor here because he's really chairing that meeting.
When they wrote the letter, we decided that we would reach out to them to make sure that they were more involved in the discussions. And so the idea is to just inform them of all of the things that we have going and all of the things that we project to happen as a result of hiring the consultant.
Do you guys think you made a mistake just the way you rolled this out with that initial statement? Is there something you think should have been done different?
Well, on the front end, we had several meetings to include, excuse me, let me turn this off.
You're following in my
I
footsteps.
thought it was Elliot. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. We met very early on with a number of people to include the city councilor's office, the president's office, the mayor's office, and the contractor community. Those people that are definitely involved. Initially, it did not include the contractor community, and so probably if we were doing it over again, we probably would, at the very outset, would have included them. But as it stands now, what we have done is to ensure that all of the current contracts that are in place and working, that they are not harmed, in the sense that all of the compliance issues and the monitoring, it will continue on everything that is in place. What has stopped is the issuance of new contracts. And so we think that we're in a good place at this moment while we review our program.
Just on the politics of all this, Mayor, a lot of Democrats right now, going into the midterms especially, they're calling for leadership to stand and fight against the Trump administration and its signals or its intimidation. Does this send a signal that
St. Louis isn't ready to fight? Look, St. Louis is a city that is unusual in where we stand right now. We have a badly damaged community, one that was ravaged by a massive tornado, and we have more on the line than most. And what I'm fighting for is to protect the community that needs the federal funding most. I want to see Democrats fight in the way you described, Mark, and I want to see us have the tools that we need, the reliability on the federal side, a stable FEMA, and I'm fighting for those things, but I'm also fighting to make sure that we have the community development block grant funds and that we have the tools we need to recover from the tornado. While many cities are fighting and planning on filing lawsuits for remedies to things that they may lose as a result of that, we don't have that luxury, because the things that we could miss out on are not things that we could remedy through a future lawsuit. They are the failure to get an extension on the FEMA awards. They are congressional allocations of community development block grant money. This is not a position position I want to be in. I do want to fight for the right of our city to stand behind supporting minority contractors and having goals that we hold ourselves accountable for. I said that over and over again, and I believe in the program because I want to see the outcomes that they are designed and to develop for our community. And as a leader, I will continue to fight for that the best way that I can while protecting those most badly damaged by the massive tornado that struck our city here on May 16th.
Are there any current timeline expectations for when you guys would like to have a new commissioner of corrections hired? So I just want to get this.
Yeah, we are doing interviews right now. I think it really depends on kind of where those interviews are. I know we've also had some additional interest. I know our team's been doing some outreach to try to make sure that that opening is widely distributed so we can get the best candidates here. I don't have a timeline, although I will say it is of utmost priority for us. I did mention that Director Burris's contract is coming to an end, and so we're being very mindful of that. He has been incredibly generous with continuing to support us through this, and so I don't know where we'd be without him. He's doing a great job, really stepping in on that in that capacity and helping us find that right candidate as we move forward.
Thank you all.
Okay.
And Julian
Yeah.
Nix is here.
Oh.
If you had the FEMA questions.
Yeah, Julia-
That's the reference.
Julian Nix just came in if we did have any additional clarification on any of that, but
Thank
you had one
Just
question you didn't
quick
answer,
one,
but
changing gears, with
Yeah.
the beginning of the school year.
Oh, uh-huh.
Has the city made any new initiatives, preparations and that? Because it's going to be a little different than it normally would be.
The city has not. I know the school board has been taking some leadership in that capacity. We have not. We are working with the school board, and we're going to be meeting with them very, very soon to talk about ways in which we can be supportive as school starts. I know as a parent, I've done some back-to-school shopping, but that's about it. Not
Thank you,
much.
Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.
Anything that I didn't get, I don't want, I hate that.
That was my big shot.